Hello to all my people, and if you're watching live, checking us out on YouTube, or listening on your favorite podcast provider, you are most definitely my people. I am your host, a chef by trade and a mark by choice. I am the Will Gray, and I'm so hyped to be here on the first edition of the Indy Wrestling Gazette. Joining me tonight, he is one quarter of the biggest faction in Northeastern wrestling. He is the most savage wrestler in professional wrestling. He's PJ Savage. PJ, thanks so much for coming back on, man. You've been on a couple times, but here we are talking about you. How are you, bub?
Man, I'm great, man. Thank you for the platform and the opportunity to be on the Indie Wrestling Gazette. It's an honor to be on. Thank you for having me back on your whole plethora of platforms. It's always a pleasure, man. Thank you.
I'm just really glad to be able to have. It's funny from a non-wrestler perspective of somebody trying to be in the business, because I love gaining these relationships that I've built through interviewing you guys and y'all being on the show. And it's, you and Bougie, and when we start talking about some of the other guys, the relationships are what makes it. You know what I mean? Just having an opportunity just to sit down and chill. So a lot of people have probably listened. If you're watching the show, you've listened to PJ's first interview. You saw him when we did the Mount Rushmore for people of color. But this right here is purely about you. We know you started at Johnny Rodz, but let's talk about your training. Like, what was it like when you first decided you wanted to get into pro wrestling?
Training was great, man. I thought it would at first, like everybody goes through the whole thing. Is it gonna hurt? I'm nervous. How do you fall? How do you do all these things? And then, especially like being a mark, the first thing that goes to your mind is like, is it gonna hurt when I do a frog splash? Is it gonna hurt when I do these things? But like the first couple months, man, you don't really do much. You don't do anything but row, especially at Johnny Rodz. You don't do anything but the fundamentals. There was one of the trainers there. His name was Mark Viola. I owe a lot to Mark Viola and Flex. Those are two guys that I owe so much to. And one of the things they made me realize was that it's always about the details. It's not about the bigger picture. It's about the finer details. And that's what Johnny teaches you. He teaches you the details of the row, the details of a lockup. I remember days and days of us going in and learning arm drags and making sure we turned at a 140-degree angle and making sure that we was placed in the right spot in the ring. And I'm talking hours going over just that. And the next day you come in and it'd be like, well, let's go back to the lockup point. And hours and hours of just placing your hand in the right place and doing things like that and really going into the details of all the nitty gritty to make you a great professional wrestler and also to make you that entertainer, to know how to sell and to know how to reach to a crowd. So a lot of my training when I first got there was all on the fundamentals. I did pick it up quick. I had a nickname from one of the guys there named Talib. He used to call me the prodigy because like I would just come in and learn everything quickly, really fast. Like it was just second nature to me. And the way I always put it mentally in my mind was we all played with wrestling figures when we were younger. So it was all about like I know how these figures are supposed to fall. I've watched wrestling all my life. I remember the first time a guy told me to do a suplex. He goes, "Have you done one before?" I was like, "Yeah. Of course I did. Never did one in my life. I just wanted to make sure I got it done. I wanted to feel it, and it was just easy. It's like we all know where to put your arm, and when you're smarting up the posting, you know where to post. So it was one of those things, and a lot of training is just how far do you want to take it, and that's what Johnny's was. So it was a great experience for me.
With your fundamentals and being crammed down your throat like that from the training, you hear that a lot about guys. It's always fundamentals, cardio, fundamentals. Having it blasted, just hour after hour, do you feel like that still gives you an advantage now, though, for it to be almost muscle memory for you?
Yeah, 100%. There'll be weeks where like there'll be this recent couple weeks I took off. I took off a couple shows. I have a back uh, a torn muscle in my back, so I took off a couple weeks, and it's like, oh man, can I still bump? Like, do you know you're a little nervous, no matter how long you've been doing it. And I had a show this past Saturday, and it's just like once I'm in it, once you're in that curtain, you're not even thinking about anything. You're not even thinking about how do I fall? How's it gonna feel? It's all muscle memory, like you said, and those hours and hours of in that gritty gym. It's those are the things that my mind and my mental always go back to 100%.
Now, moving a little bit beyond training, let's start talking about when you actually started getting in ring time for matches. Do you remember your first match?
Yeah, it was April 9th, 2016. the Boom, and I wrestled a gauntlet tag match.
What are your impressions of when you look back at your first match? How do you feel about your first match now being, multiple years, over a half decade into your career now? How do you feel about looking back at that first match?
It was something that PJ the person would have never thought he could have done. You know, I've grown up in New York, and I've grown up in impoverished neighborhoods and places and schools where teachers would tell me not to chase my dreams. So like to actually do something, to actually chase it, and to get on the road to something special, that meant a lot to me. And looking back on it, of course, I don't remember anything from that night. It's like a big black hole. I don't remember anything. But when I look back at certain footage from it and certain things, like I hit one of my finishers, the full Nelson, that night. And I remember a quick little funny story. They asked me what's my finisher because we was going over, and Johnny was gonna do me the favor because I've been such a good student. And they asked what's my finisher, and I was like, bro, I'm 3 months in. I don't have a finisher. Like I shouldn't have a finisher. You know, like I'm trying to be respectful to the game, and that's not something where you go to Johnny and like, oh, what's my finisher? He's gonna kick me right out. And just me being a rock mark, and I was like, well, can I do the rock bottom? And somebody was like, hell no, no, you can't do the rock bottom. So somebody said full Nelson slam because I had did it at training the week before, and everybody had liked it. So it was. And funny story about that move is I hate that move. I hated the full Nelson. I hated everything that had to do with it. I felt like it never got pops. I felt like it was a useless move. It was never used the right way. And lo and behold, here it is. Here's my finisher, and now it's time to make it work. And I always said, whatever's given to me, I'm gonna make it work. And now I'm still doing it today. I just won my last match with it. So there's a lot to look back on, to be fond of, and I'll always cherish those moments, man.
Having a chance to move up and be trained by somebody like Johnny Rodz. I mean, he was involved when the IC title came into the picture. I mean, Johnny's been around the block. He's seen some stuff. When you finally got away from that and you started getting out on the independent circuit, what was it like the first time you realized, okay, I'm PJ Savage and now I'm standing on my own 2 feet?
Yeah, and for me, there was a little bit of a complex there because I was down at Johnny's for 4 or 5 years. It seemed like forever. He never let any of his guys do Indy. So if he broke off, it was like this was a big thing. And it was during the pandemic. I had my reasons. I had to break off, and my complex came from I was looked at as the best guy at Johnny Rodz. I was looked at as, the guy. Like if anyone's gonna make it, it's gonna be him. He's the best guy. I was heavyweight champion for 3 years. Johnny was giving me responsibility after responsibility, trusting me with the locker room, trusting me with all the things they would trust me with, and feeding me knowledge. Like I can't tell you how many days I went in to go train, and he would make me sit in that office and sit there for 3, 4, 5 hours. I would get there at 4 o'clock, and we would leave at 11, 11:30, and I would sit in that chair and just listen to story after story. He teaches you how to be a man. He teaches you how to be a professional wrestler. He taught me how to be a father. There's so many things that he taught me being in there, and so I had that complex of, am I as good as everybody said I was? So heading out to the Indies, it was like, damn right, you are PJ Savage. You know what? Johnny held me back a little bit from the sense of not developing a character. And now I'm on the Indies. Now it's all up to me. And now I have to have a character. I have to have merch. I have to have all these things that we were told by Johnny Rodz, like this is taboo. You don't do any of that stuff. You're gonna be fundamental Play-Doh wrestler. And I came on and it was like, well, now I got a cool name. Everybody likes the name, but now I got to turn it into me. And then the logo was born because I didn't have that logo when I was at Johnny's. So once the logo came on, it was just like, this is me, this is who I am. It really represents with me. It resonates with me. So hitting that indie scene, and then I remember one of the first times I walked through curtains at a Titan tryout. They had guys coming for tryouts, and I knew I was 10 times better than all the guys at the tryout, but because I wasn't on the independent scene, everybody kind of treated me like they didn't know who I was or knew what I did, even though I wrestled Parker, I wrestled Bobby Lashley, I wrestled all these Mexican legends. People kind of ignored it because it wasn't on the indies and it wasn't on the grind and the scene. I was given the opportunity. I didn't earn it. Like that's how it looked. So I remember that tryout. It was like I took it over. It was like there was no doubt who's the best guy here. You had plans. You were gonna do something. You were gonna do something with this guy, wrestler A, and I'm not wrestler A. I'm wrestler one. I'm gonna be the guy. And I remember I walked into that tryout with swag, and then the person who's the standout in the tryout was gonna wrestle on their show later on that night. And of course, I got the spot, and it was kind of a small validation of like, okay, I made the right choice, but also that confidence that I have that I am that good, that I can be one of the best when it's all said and done. That confidence is validated because I put it to the test with 40 other strangers, and it was head above the rest. So yeah, man, it was a great experience. It was different. It was when you're at Johnny's, you're like a family, and to go into an environment where it's cutthroat now, I don't want to lose my spot, and who is this guy? So there's a lot of that, but again, it's like you said, it's about the relationships you build and the relationships I've gained on being on the independent scene. A second to none, man.
So my next question is going to be two parts for you. The first part being when Johnny came to you and said, "Okay, PJ, we're going to give you the belt. You're going to be our champion. You're going to be the guy." How did that feel? And then follow it up with when you got out of the world, you left Johnny's, and you got that same talk outside of Johnny Rodz, and somebody was like, "PJ, you're going to be our man." You see what I mean? Both sides of
Yeah,
that coin. When Johnny had that talk with you, and then the first time it happened outside when you were outside of promotion.
yeah. I'll never forget it. I remember. So there's two sides to that story with Johnny when I first got the belt. The heavyweight championship was in Mexico, and Super Crazy was the heavyweight champion. He was the heavyweight champion for 2 years plus, and the belt was down in Mexico. So when we was running shows, the heavyweight belt wasn't there unless Super Crazy was there, and he had made me the light heavyweight champion like 7 months in, 8 months in, and he told me he was like, "Papi, we're gonna put the belt on you tonight. Just don't let it get your head big, and do right by it." But he knew who I was. He knew how I was, and he knew my head getting big was going to be pretty hard. I'm a really humble person when it comes to professional wrestling. I'm a student of the game, so I respect the game more than anything else. I'm very old school when it comes to that. And so I was light heavyweight champion for a while, and then one day we came back to Laboon, the place I had my debut. I saw that green belt, the lime green world heavyweight Johnny Rodz belt, and I'm looking at him like, whoa, Super Crazy isn't here. Who's that one for? And that night, I think I was facing Willie Mack in a match. I believe I'm not 100% sure, and it was me versus Willie Mack, I think. And right before I go out to the curtain, he gives me the green belt, and he takes back the light heavyweight belt, and he goes, "Papi, this is the championship you're supposed to have." And damn, what and to do that to me right before I went out through the curtain, he did that to me 10 seconds before my music hit. So there was a flood of emotions just like running through me, and it's to like and the guys with me always make fun of me. It was like I evolved. I evolved like a Pokemon and became light heavyweight champion, evolved into a heavyweight champion. And but it was true, and it was validation for a lot of just hard work, and like, man, this is really cool. But one of the things it did take away from me was I didn't get to win that belt in the ring. Um, and fast forward now to the independent scene, heavyweight champion. The first heavyweight championship I won was over at IWA, and IWA was going through a turnover, new management, new people running the company, and there was talk about me becoming champion before then, and there was a bunch of places even before that. Like I want to say about 3 4 months into my independent run, I had got approached by a couple promotions to become the heavyweight champion, and being that I was heavyweight champion at Johnny Rodz for so long, I didn't want it to look like, well, I need the belt. I need to be a guy that has to have the championship belt. So I took it upon myself to deny it. And I was like, no, I just can't. Right now, I want to build up me. I want to be Undertaker. I don't need the belt. I could get over on my own. And, my match is a spotlight match without the title in it. Fast forward a couple months later, and the belt's like smacking me in my face. And it's like, well, you got to take it, man, because the company's going through turnover, and you're the guy. You're the guy to just take it over, and no pun intended, but take over and lead the company to wherever the hell it's gonna go. So it's all on my shoulders, and that's what I like more. It's the belt I'm holding actually holds some weight to it. Of this company could stay a local promotion, or PJ Savage can put it on the map, and I love that. I love that. I love that chance. I love that opportunity to try to take it somewhere. So they're both special, and I actually won that. Yeah, won that belt in a fatal four way. I wrestled a couple great friends of mine, Prince Ahmed, who I trained at Johnny's with, uh, Ransom, who I trained at Johnny's with, and Chris Barton, who became a good friend of mine, a really good friend of mine the moment I stepped on Indy scene. So it was special to be in there with those guys, and especially being in there with two Johnny guys. And it's funny because we got like a new belt now, and was pictures was going out, and it's like the pictures look very similar to when I won Johnny's heavyweight championship, and it's like this is gonna be a recurring theme for me in my career. I promise you. Everywhere I go, people are gonna go, "Oh shit!" Like he did the same thing everywhere he went.
So, talking about where you're at right now, you just brought him up. Takeover. You guys have been killing it on the Northeast independent scene. You had the Takeover versus STP show on IWTV. Like, you guys are all over the place. Let's talk about that. What was it like when you guys started the foundations of what Takeover became?
Well, we're all Johnny guys. We're all from Johnny Rodz. All of us trained together, came up together, all learned together. Um, it was right around the time when we decided to hit the independent scene and leave Johnny Rodz. We were training up at the Sanctuary with John Trosky, one of the smartest guys I ever met. And we had a conversation, and they looked at me because they knew it was like, if PJ does it, then we'll do it. But PJ has to take that leap of like, is he going to leave Johnny? Because that's going to give us some validation and almost give us a head start because they knew I would have some respect on my name to help get us into places. So I looked at them, and then it was us four. It was just us four, just sitting in a cold, cold January church with no heat, no nothing, and you can see your breath in the air while you're in the ring. And we was sitting on some of the church chairs, and I just said, "We're doing it. We're doing it." And I think it was like 2, 3 days later, we had went to the tryout, the Titan tryout, and right before we went, I had started a group chat for all of us in it, and I called it "Taking Over the Indies." And we had took over the tryout because they were standouts also. They did so well. It was just like you could tell what we did give us a head start against everyone else that puts in front of us. And so after that tryout, we was like, well, we're takeover. And we hit up a guy from Gleason's with us named Jesse LeBoom. He's one of the greatest graphic design artists. He's behind everything I do when it comes to designs and shows and promos and all that stuff. He's amazing. But he we asked him to create some takeover logos. And the first couple ones just looked like the tap out logos, the old tap out logos. He was like, nah, no, we can't do this. And then the TO, I was just like, just make it a TO, and whatever happens, happens. We'll go from there. No one's gonna ever see these. That's exactly what was said. No one's ever gonna see these. We're never gonna do this on the Indies. This is just for us. And we could all put it on our gear at one point in time, but no one's gonna know what Takeover was. Like Takeover is not a faction. I always said that it's not a faction. It's a group of guys. There's more members to Takeover. There's a lot more members in that group chat that have logos. Um, one being Cowboy Matt is a honcho down in Arkansas. He's taking over Arkansas. And we got Prince Ahmed, who I've spoke about him before, and just to name two guys. And there's more. There's so many more guys with Takeover logos that were in that chat. But it was us four, the core four. It was me, Bougie, who at the time was named Bushi, and Jay Bushi, and Jacko and Face, and we started to ride everywhere together. And riding everywhere together, they kind of got associated with me because I was getting booked everywhere. It started to get red hot for me, and I was just getting booked everywhere. I was booked every weekend for like 34 weekends straight, and I had made over 17 debuts at 17 different companies, and just 34 weeks of a straight grind every weekend. Sometimes a double shot. I remember it ended the second to last week of that straight through. The 33rd week, I had to do a show in Massachusetts and then come back to Jersey within a 4 or 5 hour period. And it was just insane, but I did it anyway. And today's I want to give a shout out and dedicate everything I do whenever I walk the curtain to Big Jim Anderson. He's a wrestler who passed away uh, today, 1 year ago. And love Big Jim. We were supposed to be tag team champions together over at New Evolution Wrestling, and things just didn't get to happen. But that was why I actually did that show. I went up to Massachusetts. It was a tribute show to him, and came back down to Jersey, did IWA, and yeah, man. So Takeover is after they just kept riding with me everywhere. Sooner or later, the Faces ones had got put with me at a bunch of different promotions. Then I started feuding with Jay Bougie at Invictus, and then I was like, "What's the ending of this story?" And then Takeover had formed at IWA with me, Jacob, and Face. It was the three of us, which was almost the original three. We were gonna do a faction down at Johnny's, us three. So it was always like, all right, this is gonna happen. Us three is gonna happen. But then Bougie got thrown into it, and it actually worked out for the best, man. It was beautiful. It was perfect because Bougie is a part of us. He's always been a part of us, and I remember the show he got put with us. He wasn't even supposed to be at the show, and we always had this joke. We said he wasn't canon. He's not canon in Takeover. He's just not canon. And me, Face, and Jacob got there late. Bougie was already there. He goes, "Well, guys, I'm canon now." I'm like, "What? You're canon?" And then one of the promoters came up there. He's like, "Well, you guys always ride together. We always know he's with you. And I think you guys are forming." He has a little inside tip that we were forming at Invictus. And he's like, "Well, we're not gonna be left out of that. So you're gonna form here first." And it was like, all right, well, cool. Who gives that? Who gives a shit, you know? And then Bougie, and then one of the things that we did do it for is like, I'm a talented singles wrestler with a nice little resume that people are gonna look a little bit closely at me. And what I do is when I open that door, I let my brothers follow in behind me. And that was the whole mindset behind this, because Bougie's talented as hell. He's gonna get into certain places that I can't get into. So when he gets in, he can open that door for me. And then same thing with the Faces ones. They're an amazing tag team who just needs a shot to shine. And when the door gets open for them, I'm gonna be there with them. Bougie's gonna be there with them, and we might get opportunities about this. It's all about just helping each other get opportunities we wouldn't normally get. So that's why Takeover is not really a faction. It's just more of a form of a family that we have, in an agreement of just like, we're gonna take over the Indies. If you bring in PJ Savage, you can bet your ass Jay Bougie and the Faces ones are probably in the building. So like that's just how we are. That's how we roll. And then if you got those talented guys in your locker room and you're not using them, you look stupid. So you look dumb. You look dumb. It's like, well, oh, you just had that match on and you got Bougie sitting in your locker room not doing anything. Oh yeah, you know how to run a company. And so it's like, and I always told Bougie that Bougie has a chip on his shoulder. The Faces ones got a chip on their shoulders. Um, I always told him that. I was like, try not to be the guy who creates the drama. You're not always gonna get the shots that you want to get. I'm not gonna get the shots I always want to get. But the one thing you should always be is the wrestler, because that guy is one of the most talented persons I ever worked with and ever seen in the ring. Every show we go to, they always say there's three reactions. There's the Faceless Ones match, there's the PJ Savage match, and there's the Jay Bougie match. You can always count on reactions being made. There's going to be noise made during our matches and after our matches. So that shows you that there's talent there, and that shines with us. So whenever they're in the building and they're not on the card, somebody's gonna get a stern look like, "What are you doing?" So we force people's hands. We have to. We have to out here. It's dog eat dog, and not too many people are gonna look out for you.
So, looking at it in the big scheme of things, you guys are all over the place in the Northeast. What are the chances we start getting you guys relocated and traveling some?
That is actually in the works right now. Takeover, especially for PJ Savage. Um, I always never wanted to travel right away. I'm a very like, if I'm gonna start something, I'm gonna finish it. I'm gonna become the guy. And at a lot of the places I'm at right now, I'm becoming the guy. And I know it's going to happen at a bunch of other places, and it's all in the works. It's all been talked about. So it's time for me to spread out and do extra and get out and go to different places and go down to Tennessee, go down to Florida, go down to the West Coast. Like there's somebody on the West Coast that I can't really say the name of the company, but I can't wait for that to get announced, because when it does, it's going to be so cool. And it's time for me to enter into that next tier of promotions. And I've almost been out here for a year and some change. And I've made a lot of noise in a year, but I need to make more noise. I don't want to just be the indie guy. The indie guy is going to be that the heart and soul of me, and I hope 10 years from now, guys look at me like they look at Danny Bryan, like they look at Kevin Owens, CM Punk, Adam Cole. The guy came from the indies, and he made a name for himself. And look at him on the biggest stage of them all now. Like, I want to be a part of that group of guys and carry that legacy with me. And there's nothing wrong with that indie moniker. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a badge of honor for me. It's something of pride for me to be a part of that stock of men, because at the end of the day, we're the guys that got told no. We're the guys that were always told, well, nah, maybe not. You can't be this. You got to do that. And we fought through all that adversity and just came out on top. And you're not gonna deny me. You're not gonna deny me. And all this indie guys, we're all wrestling fans when we were kids. So there's that deep rooted love for us, because believe me, if we didn't love it, we wouldn't be on the road every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sometimes Thursdays, just not getting paid and coming out in the red every time you come home. So you have to love this to do this, and putting the wear and tear on your body is a part of the game, but you love every single bit of it.
It seems like that's the reoccurring thing, no matter which part of the business you're in. It's just the reoccurring theme of you're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to work every day. And it's like the constant struggle and grind. So my final question for you is, when you look at the United States as a big picture, multiple territories out west, they're really fast paced and they're really flippy and they do a lot of that stuff. You go into the Texas Southwest region, lots of lucha libre. You come into the Southeast, real strong talkers, traditional Southern wrestling. How does PJ Savage plug and play into each territory? What about you makes you playable in every spot?
I can do it all. I can hang with the fast guys, the flippy guys. I could be the base, and I got some agileness to me too. I got some speed to me. There's a reason a lot of people compare me to Samoa Joe. So if you think about how Samoa Joe, he fits any style. That's exactly what I am. I'm the modern day Samoa Joe. I'm the new version of it with just a little more savage. So I can handle the strong style. I can handle the lucha style. I bred up in the lucha style with Johnny. Johnny teaches you the regular American and the fundamentals, but he also teaches you the lucha libre and teaches you how to face. I mean, I've wrestled Pagano, Psycho Clown. I've wrestled Hio de la Parca. I wrestled all those guys. So it's one of those things where you get down to the nitty gritty. PJ Savage can do anything. You can plug and play him anywhere. But the one thing you can count on is I'm gonna be the top guy, no matter what. I'm gonna fight tooth and nail, claw my way to the top. And it's just, you can't deny me. It's gonna happen. And one of my favorite styles of wrestling is, of course, the Japanese style. I love the Japanese style. I would love to go to Japan. I feel like I would thrive. I'm very hard hitting. Everything I do is extremely believable because I do knock people's heads off. So, so it's one of those things where it'd be cool. It'd be cool to see PJ Savage versus Tomohiro Ishii. It'd be amazing to see PJ Savage versus Minoru Suzuki, because I feel like we could put together some real masterpieces. Like, I wrestled Chris Dickinson not too long ago, and I know he wrestles with JP Strong, and it was intimidating to be in there just at first because I'm such a fan of that style of wrestling, the New Japan style. And it was another part of me that was like, well, can you hang? Can you do this? And I left that match going, he has a different gear where he turns to, and it rotates for him, and it goes to that next level, the speed, intensity, and everything. He has that different gear. And that night I learned what that gear was. And that's going to take me to a whole nother level. So that's going to put me on that level where I can definitely go and match with all these styles and thrive, not just hang, but thrive.
All right, PJ, this is my favorite part of all my interviews because I get to ask you to put yourself over, tell everybody where to find you, where you've got work coming up, anything you feel like everybody needs to know what's going on.
Definitely PJ Savage _ on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. I believe it's all PJ Savage. Just check out PJ Savage. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. ProWrestlingTees.com/PJ Savage. Go get all that Savage merch. As far as what I'm doing now, go check out Savage Season. It's dope. My YouTube channel, it's always promos. Everything's uploaded up there. It's content. I'm a content king. And also just what, in terms of what I'm doing wrestling wise, check out IWA, Intense Wrestling Alliance, Nutley, New Jersey. It's going from a local promotion to someplace that everyone should watch. There's going to be nothing but straight bangers of matches. SWF, Titan Championship Wrestling. There's going to be something brewing that's special when I work with each of those companies. I got so much more. And then Invictus Pro Wrestling, man. I am the social media client for clout briefcase holder. I'm going for the championship. So check out Invictus Pro Wrestling. Anything New York, New Jersey, Philly, New England, PJ Savage has his name on it. So make sure you check it out. And once I spread my wings, you're going to know. You're going to know where I'm going.
Excellent, PJ, man. It's always a pleasure, brother. Anytime you come on to chat about some wrestling. For the most savage professional wrestler, PJ Savage, I am the Will Gray. Thanks for stopping by and listening, my people.